Welcome to week 2, health psychology students. Instructor Anderson here. I'm going to go right into sharing my screen for week 2. I hope that you enjoyed the content from week 1. All right, we're going to go right into it. Again, if you have any questions, just reach out, email me. And like I said, just a reminder, these videos can be lengthy. So I always encourage you to make sure you pause the video. This is asynchronous. So again, meaning that you can excuse me, you can put yourself on pause, write notes, go back to the content, and connect it with that. Now, again, this is not, in replacement of your readings or your own reading of the chapter for the week. This is supplemental. This is just for you to, for me to add some of the stuff that I know in terms of the content, the expertise level in psychology. And to why I love it, the material itself. So again, it is not in place of, if that makes sense. So week 2, here are your topics: beliefs in health-related behavior, psychological underpinnings of health-related behavior, and the psychological factors involved in the onset, maintenance, and the change of that behavior, my friends. Okay, so these are the topics that you'll be looking at for the week. Learning objectives: please examine the role of beliefs, and you're going to go into the idea of what beliefs you have, the cultural beliefs, what you were raised on. We look at the media aspects of beliefs, right? Analyze the psychological factors involved in behaviors at those various stages of health and identify psychological drivers, deterrence in health-related behavior. What deters us from going to get help? All right, I'm actually going to turn off my video. What stops us from, if A, B, and C happens to us, or X, Y, and Z happens to an individual? Why is that person driving, okay, to say, I need to get better? Or why is that person saying, this is not a concern? All right. So various factors that we can think about. All right. Tasks: reading the learning journal, or the learning guide, excuse me, doing the learning journal as well. Participate in the discussion assignments, complete and submit the written assignment. Make sure you're doing all of that, okay? Our thoughts and emotions follow our beliefs, right? The way we feel about certain topics, whether it be we feel joy, we can go into the emotional granularity, right? What more about that joy are we feeling, my friends? What more joy are we feeling in those certain situations, right? Where, okay, we are thinking of something, we're hearing something, and then this system of beliefs start to kind of come from the surface, right? And through times, those attitudes, to our choice of words, the way we think about something, yes, that can go into assumptions, right? When we assume something because somebody told us, we assume something happens because of what we were connected with to maybe that disease or that illness prior, or knowing what it did to others or what it did do, knowing what that you might look at yourself and say, hey, this won't happen to me. And then I go away from that. So those behaviors that determine how we react to life events and what we think is possible. So let me read that again. Our thoughts and emotions follow our beliefs and create the attitudes, assumptions, expectations, and the behaviors that determine how we as people, you, react to life events and what we think is possible. And it can actually, when we talk in the chapter about self-efficacy, locus of control, it is going to see what we think is possible or maybe not possible. So the driving of behavior, health beliefs influence health behaviors and health outcomes. Think about that again. The driving of behavior, our beliefs of health, okay? Our beliefs of health influence our behaviors and the outcomes. And I believe that is one of the most pieces to think about, because ultimately at the end of the day, right, we can say from the early parts of understanding health psychology is the individuals, right? The individuals, the people, right? In their choices, right? And what health psychology means Is it ultimately up to the person to why this is happening? Is it all the responsibility? Now, there's a lot of debate around in health psychology. So, what do you think? And I think there is a variety of pieces that we can look at. We can look at our outside influences. We can just look up the genetic makeup of the individual, right? The makeup of the individual to say this is why this is happening to them. All right. So beliefs, today's world of beliefs, there are so many things factoring into why we believe. Look at that picture. Look at the social media. Look at the technology, right? When people say, I have X, Y, and Z symptom, or I looked it up on Wikipedia, or some sort of medicine website, or I know that this medicinal, uh, uh, you know, yeah, this medicinal, component is going to make me better. Now, where are you getting that information from? That's all connected. And again, I am not supporting anything in particular, CBD, medicinal, I am not doing any of that. What I am going to do is I talk a lot about just facts. I talk about things that are real, things that are truly something that is going to, right? That is going to allow us as the individual to create the beliefs. Look at on the slide. What does that mean? When you look at that slide, when you look at the picture, you have this doctor coming in and you have this person saying, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen to me, or this is what I need to do to when I have this conversation, this communication to the medical professional. This is what I need to make sure I bring to the table. And again, I am not saying that you should not do your own research. I am not saying that you should not go into the dentist or the doctor, whatever that may be, or the chiropractor, with information that you feel is truly relevant to what is at hand in front of you, right? I'm not saying that you should or should not do that. What I am saying is the purpose of many of these things and the way our beliefs are made are because of what um, those negative, right, implications that have happened, right, of how people have promoted misinformation about things in history, what has been created out there, and maybe that can create someone saying, you know what, this is I don't need to go check this out. I don't need to have this examined. I don't need to go further into this because I found the information on my own. Okay. So, and it can impact relationships, right? In the medical world, the relationships between the patient and the doctor is essential, is important. And not saying that we know that there are real good doctors out there. But there are doctors that don't make the best decisions in the interest of the patient. Now, again, health psychology isn't about all of that. It is an element that is considered and understood to work in saying, hey, listen, but and to empower people, right. But those belief systems and how you navigate that is a key piece. So let's look at the attribution theory. People attempt to understand the events, actions in their lives, the intentions, beliefs, and feelings for those events that occur. That is what happens when we think about that attribution, right? And there is this internal and external. So why it happened? There's this internal, kind of this dispositional, and there's the external, which is the situational. Now let's take a look at the internal, this dispositional, right? Things are happening because of the characteristics of the individual, right? The characteristics, the attitudes, right? How they were raised, maybe their life experiences, the temperament, type A, type B. We're going to talk about that in future chapters and how that is related to health. The individual choices. What choices are you making for yourself, right? If you're feeling X, Y, and Z, right, as that variable, that unknown, that's why I put X, Y, and Z. If you're feeling this way, but if you are drinking constantly, if you're not moving your body constantly, this is why it's happening. Okay. And also genetics, which are a huge role in to understand that. And a lot of that is something important, obviously, to know of your own, of your of how it plays into your health and the beliefs and the attitudes, but at the same time, but also knowing that is helpful too, to make those choices. So the external is the situational. That's more environmental, of what's happening around you. We can also connect the locus of control, right? When things happen in locus of control, this means this. It means that things that have happened to you, right, in life can be more of the external or the internal locus of control. So external would be, the choices beyond your control, really, when you think about it, right? So things around you, the environment, right? If you, like around our area right now in northern Minnesota, we're having the smoke from um, the smoke from Canada, right? And that is affecting the air quality. And they're saying, hey, warning, don't go outside, especially if you have asthma, if you have breathing problems, COPD. Um, um, these things will affect your health. Now, again, those are things that if you go outside, and it reacts to that, guess what? Here's the deal. That is kind of beyond your control, that itself. Now, again, you still have control, but again, there's a lot of factors in that. Or of certain things that have happened in your life. And if you look at the locus of control without really relating it to the health locus of control is saying things have happened because of other things that have aligned or occurred because, and to that, excuse me, because of those outside occurrences, right? This has happened to me. But the internal is more of the, like I said, the choices one makes. So when we relate that to health, exactly kind of very similar to the attribution theory, because it is the choices of the attribution theory is the characteristics. The locus of control is controlling of these. Same thing with these. It's the health of controlling or what's happening. And again, people can go into health psychology and say health psychology is important because the environment, the focus on outside things that are happening, the social aspect, the environmental aspects. What are we doing as a community? What are we doing as a country? What are we doing as a greater people to help in those particular situations? Another piece too that's important to understand in health psychology is self-efficacy. This is your ability to build confidence and use the confidence using past experiences. When you have those support networks, how has that helped you or has it helped you? And if it is been to you and you've had a strong support network, are you using that to your advantage? So listen to this. When we have low self-efficacy, we have the ability to say, you know what? I don't have the confidence. I don't have the ability to use the confidence, or I don't have the ability to have those past experiences help me further, or I don't take advantage in a positive manner for that support. But if you have high self-efficacy, your ability to say, yes, this will be done, or yes, I can go further on this and do this, that is important. Self-efficacy is your ability, right, to say, I have these tools in front of me to help me. High and you're presented with the situation if someone's obese and someone needs to lose weight because their cholesterol levels are up, they're pre-diabetic, they have a risk for a heart attack. Are they able to take that information, which again is a lot of information? Are they going to be able to do something about that? And if they have high self-efficacy, they are going to utilize those support networks. They're going to say, these past experiences have shaped me, and I'm going to move forward, right? Right? It's that wellness model, continuum, back and forth. When you think about that wellness model, the continuum wellness model, where are you going? Are you going to be more on the left-hand side versus the right-hand side? And when you have low self-efficacy, right, you might even look at those past experiences, my friends, and use them more towards a negative sense. Well, this is kind of always happened to me, so I guess it's going to continue to happen to me. All right. In the chapter, we talk about models of behavior. A really important piece is the health belief model. I'm not going to go through this all, but I like this graph because it really talks a lot about that, right? It kind of goes into that biopsychosocial model. There are modifying factors, which again is those demographic variables, right? Age, sex, ethnicity, race, marital status. The social, socio-psychological variables, it's the location, your education, your knowledge of health, right? Your immigration status. And why immigration status? Again, think about in the immigrants that came from Europe over, again, bringing various diseases and vice versa. When people go to other countries from the US and vice versa, right? Those are variables. Those are those unknowns when we talk about that, right? And those are going to be factors, right? In how those perceptions to disease, uh, building of self-efficacy, right? And I think there's so many different connections to um, all those variables such as personality. We look at the internal locus of control. We look at the ability to handle peer pressure, but have you handled peer pressure, right? It really becomes larger. And I think the health belief model is a great model to look at in terms of kind of a defining a piece to health psychology, right? Because you can see it's not just the genetics, it's not just um, marital status, it's not just ethnicity, right? It is, and modifying is such as that, modifying, right? So so it's important because when it says it connects it to individual beliefs, right? How do we perceive the threat? Are we more susceptible? Are we more in terms of looking at with the evaluation of the behavior we have? Do we feel that we're going to have I guess the right choices, the ability to have those choices to help us, right? And so many factors that where I talked about before with the locus of control, the attribution theory, right? That is going to be key. Okay. And that perceived self-efficacy is whether that's low or high. But what it ultimately comes down to is those actions, the individual behaviors. Health psychology is going to go back to those modifying factors. Where are we, right? If you're in your 20s, it's going to be a lot different than versus if you're in your 60s. Depending on where you live. In the United States, there's parts of the country that are going to be um, more unhealthy based on research, based on data. And why is that? Why is that? They've looked at the amount of fast food restaurants, and we have fast food restaurants all over the place. And those things are tempting in itself, and that is a whole chapter we can probably focus on, right? Um, those with degrees, those with high school diplomas versus people that have dropped out, right? People that have dropped out of high school and don't have that education have the perceptions of maybe not even understanding that threat and the perceived severity of the disease. That factor is huge. And it goes into that health knowledge, right? And look at that peaceable cues to action, mass media, social media, internet, advice from others, personal influence, reminders, right? There are a lot of health insurance agencies when you sign up for that will put programs to benefit you to earn rewards, to earn uh, a lot of different things that will say, hey, we want you to be healthy. We want to connect that positivity to your behaviors. The protection motivation theory is a psychological model that explains how people evaluate threats. We go back to those modifying factors, not modifying factors, excuse me, individual beliefs, and decide whether or not to engage in that protective behavior. So here's how it works. You can kind of look at this. Fear is a big factor in this, right? Protection motivation theory proposes that people base their decisions on two primary factors, whether that be a threat appraisal, right? Appraising, looking at right, what's happening in front of them. It's an assessment. That's exactly what it is. And a coping appraisal. Okay. So a threat appraisal is the assessment of a threat's severity, your own susceptibility to the threat, and how vulnerable you feel. Now, your assessment of your own ability to take action that will avert or overcome the perceived threat. Coping. Now let's look at this example. I love this image when I have my teaching resources because I think it's clear. Upon learning about the dangers of consuming too much fast food, such as obesity and heart disease, that's the threat appraisal. It's there. It's hovering over you, right? We know what fast food can do to you. An individual might be motivated to start cooking healthy meals at home, believing it to be manageable and an effective strategy to avoid these health risks, right? So there we go. This is so important in health psychology but it's also important to look based on those modifying factors in terms of the cost, in terms of the income wealth, right? People with more money are more likely, right, to look at that and say, oh, that's no problem. I can avoid that because I have the money, right, to start eating more healthy meals at home, right? There have been food deserts in communities that have now, in our area, one of the areas in the west side of our large city here, had a food desert. And what they did is they said, well, we want to know, we want to see that there is a lack of availability to fresh fruits and veggies. So they opened up a Quick Trip, for example, and they provided in there more fresh fruits and vegetables to say, hey, there's access to it. We want to make sure they're understanding that there are options out there. And again, that's just a small snippet of kind of that connection to the protection motivation theory. But that's kind of a side. Now, the theory of planned behavior has three key factors. The theory itself is that it helps predict the human behavior, right? Personal attitudes, subjective norms, and the perceived behavioral control. So let's take a look at the personal attitudes. It's a person's attitude to an issue can help predict their behavior. We go back to the very basis of understanding an individual and how that attitude is developed based on those experiences. Subjective norms is a person's cultural, social, or peer group norms. Those basic norms are those basic principles, right? Can help predict in that connection to prior to that history. And then the perceived behavioral control. A person's behavior can be predicted based on whether they feel they can control the outcome. And if it's out of their control, right? So let's look at the examples. Personal attitude and attitude to exercise predicting likelihood of exercising. A lot of programs will put saying, hey, there's a lot of exercise routines. There's a lot of opportunities out there. We'll make it attractive and make membership cost effective. We can do fun competitions. So again, how is that person's attitude? How were they raised? What were they given years ago, maybe in gym class, maybe those types of things that said exercise is a good thing for our bodies. And we can go back and then they can connect to that subjective norm. Friends are not going to the gym, so you're less likely to. If your friends don't, or if you never were given that opportunity, or you were never expected to do that, or maybe you never saw your parents or family members or a community promoting that, are you going to do that? And the perceived behavioral control is the belief that you can lose weight if you try. So you are more likely to go on a diet saying, I know I can do this. This is what I'm doing, and I know I can do this. Then we can go along even beyond that and say, well, again, what are those support networks? And are those low or high self-efficacy? So there we go. Okay, there we go. Developmental model is in the book talks about the exposure, social learning, associative learning, exposure to various ideas, experiences around social media. That social learning is a really big piece too, as well, because when we talk about that, and it goes back to how we're defining excuse me, not defining, how we're looking at the connection to food, how have we been presented to certain foods, and what we have used to that food in a positive way, a negative way. The book talks about that, and associative learning as well. And I think that's important too. all of these in health psychology because it really gives you an opportunity to connect to your experiences. Okay, and so when we take, excuse me, when we talk about really quick here, when we talk about associative learning, it's that conditioning piece. Okay, it's that conditioning piece. How we've used food have we used food? Have we associated um, healthy foods with rewards or unhealthy foods? Okay. And going back to this, even from an early time, what have we seen with that connection to food? And that it can even go back to understanding why certain people, right, have these certain subjective norms, what people have connected with them in terms of what has motivated them, or maybe there's been a lack of motivation, right? When we connect to certain people in our lives from the past, that has a lot to do with all that. So I'm going to stop right there. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Oh, I'm going to put my video back on to wrap it up. Hope you enjoyed this video. I did talk a lot. I felt like this chapter had a lot more information, and I wanted to make sure we connected with you, or I connected with you on that as well. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you reach out. Pause the video, look back at that video, take notes, and we'll go from there. And make sure you have a good cup of coffee. All right. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.